Valentina's life had been far from sweet. Her father had died heroically in a hot zone when she was still a little girl. Her mother raised the girl alone, shouldering the burden, trying to provide for her daughter, but she was failing miserably at it. Valerie's mother, Veronica, was sickly. Sometimes she wouldn't leave sick leave for months, until her employer started hinting that he didn't need perpetually ill employees. Having quit of her own accord once again, her mother would lock herself in her room, where she would sob into her pillow from helplessness. She and her mother never had enough money. Sometimes dinner consisted only of bread that the girl would dip in salted sunflower oil or plain pasta. In class, she was dressed worse than everyone else. Children can be cruel. They say what they see. In class, Valerie was considered an outsider. Her poverty, her clothes, all the girls discussed them. She got used to the mockery of her classmates, whispering at the back desk about how Valerie had come to school in a patch sweater again today. When Valerie turned 14, her mother passed away. Her aunt took in the niece, her deceased mother's sister. Life didn't get any better for Valerie there either. Aunt Claire called the girl a freeloader, a lazy bones, but she herself showed no enthusiasm for either work or housekeeping. Claudia immediately realized that Valerie was already a fairly grown girl who could be put to use in household management. The aunt loaded all domestic duties onto her niece. She even sent the girl to the nearest store for wine, to the place where alcohol could be given on credit by her best friend Claire, who worked there. Aunt Claire loved to sip some red wine in the evening. When there was no money for wine, she wouldn't hesitate to run to a neighbor for moonshine. At the end of the month, they would dip bread in vegetable oil together. Money never stayed in Claudia's hands. After paying off debts, the aunt and niece would find themselves broke. The tipsy aunt constantly started the same song on the theme, "Burden, when will you get married?" which often brought her niece to tears. That same friend who sold Valerie wine for her aunt had a son. Evelyn worked in her own son's store. Claudia bitterly envied their family's prosperity. More than once, the aunt would start conversations with Valerie about whether she liked her friend's son, but the girl would only remain silent. When Valerie came of age, Claudia began matchmaking her, describing the well-fed life with Evelyn's son. But she was thinking more about her own well-being than about the girl. If Valentina became the wife of the store owner, she wouldn't be hurt. She could go to the little store even without money. If she became related to generous Evelyn, she would give products for free, and then debts wouldn't need to be repaid. Claudia owed her friend a significant sum, but the grown-up niece was in no hurry to introduce her aunt to the well-fed world she had invented. Always obedient, Valerie suddenly became stubborn, started shouting that she wouldn't solve her aunt's financial problems. She had really gotten on her nerves, pressing the girl daily and persuading her to marry her friend's son. One day, Valerie couldn't stand it. "I'm not going to solve your financial problems." Then the niece left, slamming the door loudly. Returning after some time, Valerie packed her simple belongings, taking with her a piggy bank that her aunt didn't know about. She had been collecting money ruble by ruble since she found herself in her house. The accumulated money should have been enough to pay for a room. The girl also didn't forget to take her father's orders and award documents. The medals were the only memory of her deceased father. The order became a talisman for Valerie. The money was enough not only to pay for renting modest housing from an elderly landlady, but also for food for the first time. Having moved away from her aunt, the girl thought about how to live further. To go study, such a thing was out of the question, because she had to pay for the room and have something to live on during her studies. Somehow, in a supermarket, Valerie was given a free newspaper where the city's job vacancies were published. There were many offers, but they were all specialized. They didn't suit Valentina, who had no education according to the specified criteria. Valerie randomly chose the phone number of an enterprise where a cleaner was required. Where else would they take her after school? She could only mop floors with a rag, earning her living with this simple task. In the HR department, she was hired immediately because of the particularly toxic team. Cleaners didn't last long at this company. The office had been dirty for 3 days already. Having signed the employment contract, Valerie immediately began her duties. Entering one of the rooms where there were many computers and office workers sitting, Valerie began diligently mopping the floor. "What's that stench? I don't understand." Valerie startled at the sharp cry that sounded right in her ear. A beautiful but very evil girl was shouting. She was beautiful with that poisonous beauty of heroines from terrible villains, black eyebrows spread wide, almond-shaped evil eyes, hair the color of a raven's wing, high cheekbones, a sharp chiseled chin. Even a witch's strand of tar-black hair in the center of her forehead was present. One look at her was enough to understand that this beauty was quite the mean one. Nevertheless, the girl was more than attractive. "What are you staring at? Can't you smell that the mop reeks of rot? Go rinse it with detergent right now," the poisonous beauty commanded authoritatively. Passing by two guys sitting almost at the exit, Valerie heard them whispering, evaluating her figure and other assets. Valentina was also an attractive girl, but unlike her vis-à-vis, who had sent the newcomer to rinse the rubber roller of the mop, her beauty was gentle and soft. Valerie had kind facial features, large grey eyes, a high forehead, childishly plump lips, light thick hair gathered in a careless ponytail with a simple terry elastic. Even the old, out-of-fashion baggy clothes couldn't hide her thin waist and high chest. Timidly lowering her eyes, with a mop in her hand, she reminded the guys of poor Cinderella being scolded by one of the evil stepmother's daughters. They shared these observations in quiet whispers so that the local office queen Marianne wouldn't hear them. She was the one who had scolded Valerie. They also shared impressions about the new cleaning lady. The girl was definitely not bad, only her clothes and shoes were shabby. But the guys were wrong to think that Marianne couldn't hear their whispering. The office queen had excellent hearing. All evil women who like to cause trouble to others possess it. Valerie hadn't even managed to leave the room when Marianne was already enthusiastically discussing every part of her poor, old wardrobe with her female colleagues. Valerie wanted to break the mop over her knee and send everyone to hell, but memories of her own dire situation stopped her. Without giving in to the overwhelming emotions, the girl rinsed the rubber roller, then returned to the office and began mopping the floor again, ignoring the mockery of the female half of the staff. Every day spent at work seemed like hell. Marianne managed to turn not only the employees, but also the management against the new cleaning lady. Only one guy sympathized with the girl, the same one who had called her Cinderella at their first meeting. One day he secretly waited for Valerie near the office because the cleaning lady's workday ended later than that of other employees. Having waited, Igor invited her to a cafe. They chatted cheerfully. Igor seemed to Valerie to be an open and kind guy. But the next day, in one of the long office corridors, one of Marianne's friends approached her. "What a fool you are. Found someone to mess around with. Igor is Marianne's boyfriend. They're going to get married. She'll destroy you if I tell her you went to a cafe with him. Mary will soon become the department head. You'll have fun then," the girl said maliciously. The next day, an unpleasant surprise awaited Valerie. When she entered the room where the department Marianne worked in was located, the song, "Hello, Second-Hand Girl," immediately started playing. And Mary herself, with a serious face, began asking her at which flea market one could buy the same vintage sweater as Valerie's. Marianne called the broken boots on the girl's feet a rarity, NKVD surplus and Spanish boots, inventing all new sophisticated mockeries for each item from the girl's wardrobe. The workers present during Valerie's humiliation politely giggled at Marianne's mean jokes, not wanting to quarrel with the malicious careerist. Igor never invited Valerie to a cafe again. Accidentally bumping into the young cleaning lady in the corridor, the guy would embarrassedly hide his eyes and look away. He couldn't look into the eyes of the girl he had liked so much. He was ashamed and disgusted by his betrayal because he had giggled along with everyone else, present at the spectacle staged by Marianne. He had long since grown tired of Mary, but he didn't dare even hint that they should break up. Igor liked his job at the office. The salary suited him. He didn't want to stick his neck out to quarrel with the future department head. People like Igor are usually called opportunists. The guy hoped for career growth, to win a place under the sun by any means, even if it meant trampling sincere feelings and betraying his barely budding love. After the harassment arranged for the cleaning lady who dared to claim her fiancé, Marianne walked around satisfied, like a vampire. The office queen was so satisfied with Valerie's public humiliation that she even left the young cleaning lady alone for some time. Valerie's rising self-esteem immediately collided with life's reality. If she quit this job, she risked being left without wages. When signing, she hadn't read the employment contract. But later, when she came to talk about quitting to the HR department, she was told that if she left earlier than the agreed term without working at least 1 month, she risked not getting a penny. This was supposedly written in the employment contract. It was a pity to lose the earned money, so she had to stay. The money from the piggy bank was almost all gone. Moreover, Valerie now cared for a small pet. She couldn't leave Martin hungry. A small white kitten had somehow miraculously gotten into the office. Valerie had to hide him from the evil Mary until the end of the workday. Kind-hearted, she couldn't leave a helpless month-old kitten on the street. She took him home. The kind old lady, in one of whose rooms Valentina lived, was not at all against the kitten. Valerie named the kitten Martin, and when there was almost no money left, the girl shared her last kefir with her pet. The long-awaited payday coincided with the day when the boss intended to visit the office. He was the head of the entire network of branches and enterprises. Everyone feared the boss except Marianne. She had managed to ingratiate herself with the former military man. The chief liked her sharp mind, predatory beauty, courage, and audacity. When management made their rounds of their domains, the chief didn't fail to look into his favorites department. Seeing him, Marianne got up from her seat and hurried to meet him, accidentally catching with her elbow the half-finished coffee standing on the armrest of the massive computer chair. The coffee remnants spilled from the paper cup that fell silently to the floor. Quickly kicking the dirty cup under the table with her foot, Marianne beamed with a welcoming smile and approached the boss. "Hello, Nicholas. Why haven't you come for so long? We missed you." Marianne skillfully pursed her beautifully outlined lips as if she wanted to kiss the chief. Then she cast a vengeful glance at Valerie, who was wiping the copier with a napkin, and continued. "Although, you won't get bored here. The HR person hires God knows who. The new cleaning lady cleans the office terribly. We have to sit like in a pigsty." Marianne gently took the chief by the arm and led him to her workplace, pointing with her finger at the stain left from the spilled coffee. With feigned anger, Marianne nodded toward Valerie. "Do you see?" "No. Do you see how our cleaning lady cleans? She completely ignores my workplace, doesn't clean here at all. Now I personally have dust and dirt." Nicholas frowned. He was still not an old man, imposing, massive, with military bearing. Marianne knew perfectly well that the pedantic chief didn't like disorder, so she decided to frame the upstart whom she considered her rival. "Come to my office," the boss said dryly as he left Valerie. His tone boded nothing good. "Why is there disorder in the office? Why do you perform your work duties so poorly?" The chief carefully examined the flushed face of the embarrassed girl. "Everything was cleaned well. I don't know where the stain and dirt came from," Valerie squeezed out with difficulty. "It's just that they don't like me in the office. Marianne constantly picks on me. Probably she spilled the coffee on purpose. She just wants you to fire me." The girl suddenly became bold before the management. Nicholas thoughtfully tapped the pen cap on the table. "You seem like a good girl. Where does this dislike of office workers toward you come from?" "I don't know." "And who are you to me? Introduce yourself." Valerie gave her name and surname. Hearing Valentina's rather rare and unusual surname, the chief became agitated. "And your patronymic? What's your father's name?" Valerie lowered her head, but proudly raised it again. "My father's name was George. He died." But the boss interrupted the girl, continuing for her. "In the North Caucasus, he was my friend. The captain died receiving a mortal wound, and he saved me, pulling me from the line of fire." Then he thought for a long time. Valerie stood opposite, shifting from foot to foot. The silence dragged on. "That's it. So you're saying Mary completely arranged hazing? We'll sort it out. Go work for now. Tomorrow I'll order hiring another cleaning lady. It's not right for a hero's daughter to drag a mop across the floor. You'll go study. Is your mother alive?" Valentina shook her head negatively. "Long ago." The girl nodded affirmatively. She was an orphan then. "Do you have a place to live?" Valerie shrugged. "I lived with my aunt. Now I rent a room." The chief clenched his hand, lying on the table, into a fist so tightly that his knuckles went white. "We'll sort it out." That day, Valerie ran to her rented apartment, not feeling her legs from happiness. Just imagine, her first salary, and even more than promised, a generous bonus. Running into the pet store, she bought cat pâté for Martin. Seeing a toy for kittens, she bought it. That day she was very proud of herself. Of course, she had become a real breadwinner, could feed both herself and the kitten. And the main happiness, the chief fired the nasty Mary that same day, who had made Valerie's life so difficult. Now no one would humiliate and mock her old, ugly clothes, although now she could quite afford to buy herself something new. After feeding Martin, the girl ran for new clothes, but the next day was even more wonderful. Coming to the office, Valerie was surprised to see that some unfamiliar elderly woman was mopping the floors. Unusually obsequious and fawning, the HR person approached. He brought a new contract. She was accepted for the position of operator working with clients. In the second half of the day, the chief arrived. He again invited Valerie to his office, where he handed her apartment keys. "Keys to my second apartment. I once bought this apartment for future children, but children haven't happened yet. Live there. It's not right for my friend's daughter to wander around rented rooms." "Oh, but I have a kitten. Can I take the kitten there?" "I won't go anywhere without Martin," Valerie declared. Nicholas laughed merrily. "Even with an alligator, move in." "The apartment has been empty for a long time. You'll manage together with the kitten." Taking her things and Martin, Valerie warmly said goodbye to the old lady from whom she had rented a room and moved into a spacious 3-room apartment. After the move, Valerie didn't run to work. She flew. Although she was listed as a simple operator, she hardly dealt with calls. The chief treated his friend's daughter like his own child. He bought new clothes, bought household appliances for the apartment where she lived, began introducing her to the company's business. The childless warrior saw Valentina as his successor. He wanted that if something happened to him, Valerie could replace him in all spheres related to the work of the network of offices and enterprises. Only Aunt Claire constantly insisted that there was no money for education. The friend of Valentina's deceased father insisted on enrolling in the university's economics department. Looking with surprise at the transformation in the appearance and behavior of the former cleaning lady, at management's attitude toward her, Igor immediately found the courage to tell Marianne that their relationship had exhausted itself. He absolutely didn't hurt Marianne with this statement. The girl had long considered him an unpromising defect, trying at her new workplace to court her boss's son. Having received freedom from the former office queen, the opportunist tried to establish relations with Valerie, but the girl already knew his worth, so she refused his offer to go somewhere on the weekend. Valerie refused him briefly and coldly, surprisingly remembering, "How could I have liked such a cunning opportunist before?" He came to nothing, turned out to be needed by neither Marianne nor Valentina. How could she have suffered over him, cried because of his betrayal, when he had enticed her and then switched to Marianne? Where were my eyes? What could be attractive about a person like Igor, except perhaps his sickeningly sweet marmalade face? And I still suffered from unrequited love, even cried. Valerie reproached herself for past short-sightedness. One day, buying food for Martin at the pet store, Valerie knocked one of the pâté cans off the shelf. Skillfully caught by a strong hand, the can didn't reach the floor. "Don't economize on kitties. You're buying good food," said a tall, unfamiliar guy, putting the can back in place, approvingly nodding at the package of cat food in Valerie's hands. "I try. I just love him." Amazed by the young man's dexterity and quick reaction, Valerie was a bit confused. "I love my cat, too. Mine is a Savannah." "What breed is your cat?" the guy asked with interest. "Mine is also purebred. Breed Russian from nobility," the girl joked in response. He snuck into our office. I picked him up so that one evil woman wouldn't throw him out the window. So the kitten stayed to live with me. I named him Martin. Valerie suddenly opened up for no apparent reason. Not even 10 minutes had passed since their acquaintance when the young man and girl were chatting as if they were old friends. Archie understood Valerie's jokes, and Valentina liked his openness, his views on life, which he readily shared with her. Unnoticed by Valerie, Archie walked the girl home. They stood for a long time near the entrance, chatting about everything under the sun. They wanted to talk to each other. The young man and girl didn't want to part at all, but it was already too dark outside. Valerie thought that it was improper to so obviously like each other on the first day of acquaintance, but Archie anticipated her. He said he didn't want to leave, but propriety demanded it. He seemed to have read her thoughts. Climbing the stairs, Valentina thought with surprise that it turned out it was all true about impulses, about the unity of souls, about one's person. She spent the whole night without sleep, replaying in her head the plots of worn-out novels where heroes met their other half. In the morning, completely sleepless, Valerie got ready for work. For the first time in a long while, she didn't want to go. She wanted to run to the pet store to try to find Archie. In their conversation, they had even forgotten to exchange phone numbers. What was her surprise when, leaving the entrance, she saw him. "You know, I couldn't leave you. I just ran home to feed the cat and came back to your house again. I watched your window all night." The guy pointed to the second-floor windows where Valerie lived. "And you didn't sleep either. I saw that the light was on in your bedroom all night. This is fate, you understand? It was predetermined. You're mine, and I'm yours. Period," said Archie, drawing the girl to himself, greedily inhaling the scent of her hair. If you enjoyed the story, please support me with a thumbs up, and to learn about new interesting stories, click the bell when subscribing. All the best to you.